Welcome in, Campo and Joe. We are happy that if you've tuned in on Facebook Live to say hey to us and talk a little Jaguar football with us, we appreciate it. Or wherever you find your podcast, Joe C. from XL Primetime, our head coach, Dave Campo, formerly the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. The only reason I say that right now is because he's a teal guy. He's a Duval man. But take a look at our bobbleheads. Hit your bobblehead, coach, just so you can, tap that bad boy. So we've got our bobbleheads that we will put out front and center, but you're dressed in Dallas gear right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the only time I got a bobblehead. But let me tell you something. That's a collector's item.
Oh, I believe
you realize that, right? Yeah, you can still get it on eBay. $10 on eBay. I'm not getting any of it, but the league is still getting something.
Yeah, somebody's making money off of you.
I don't think they're making a whole lot, though.
Yeah, that's beautiful, though. All right, so we just wanted to bring our bobbleheads out just to kind of take that, just kind of create a little atmosphere. So we, indulge us if you don't mind.
You've made it when you have a bobblehead.
And so these are from the kids, okay?
Oh, okay.
So TLD, the lovely Diane, and Michael in the middle, I call him, young Hyla, Annie. So they took a picture of me way back when, and I'm a little leaner and meaner, but still, I have a bobblehead.
One of the things is we're both should have big heads because we're pretty smart, both of us, and that's kind of what it portrays.
And we're spoiled with beautiful families, too.
Absolutely.
So let's big head them right now. What do you say, Coach?
You got it.
Let's big head you Jaguar fans, just as far as what we think about, how the last preseason game went and then how we think the next preseason game will go. Now, we learned a little bit from last week to this week about Doug Peterson's plan. Actually, let's start there because I felt like after the joint practice, keep it going, keep stressing the player, put him in game situations, but Doug elected not to because of the hitting, and now we'll have starters playing. He made it sound like a couple of quarters against the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, everybody has a little different philosophy on that because if you look around, the Dallas Cowboys are not going to play any of their starters in any of the three games. Right. They're going right into the first ball game with no game.
Do you like that?
No, I don't like that. My thought would have been to treat this like a 4-game preseason like it used to be. And, the first game you don't play anybody. The second game, which is now the first game in a 3 deal, you play them a little bit, which would have been the Cowboy game.
Sure.
Then the second game, which is the Detroit game, would be like a third game in a 4-game preseason. You play them for a half. Into the third quarter maybe, which would have been the Detroit game for us now with the Jags. And then you don't play them at all in the last one. Some people are doing that this year. Some are doing it the way Doug's doing it. I think he felt that that the Detroit, having the practice together, that they had enough one-on-one padded situation that they could go into this game, not play in the Detroit game and then, play them in this last game. I prefer to have 3 weeks left before the game for a little nagging injury here or there as opposed to 2.
In the beginning, I was kind of like, I was right there with you step for step, just as far as give them a lot of work, let them hit, but then give them rest. Because if you think about it, Coach, very early in the schedule, they're going over to London for 2 weeks. They're coming back. They're not coming back to a bye week. They're going to go and play a Thursday night game against the New Orleans Saints 3 weeks after they come back from London. And then they got the Pittsburgh game before they ever even get on a bye. Right. They're not on a bye until way late in the season. So I felt like they probably should maybe have a little, this is where I kind of changed my mind a little bit. Go ahead and let them hit this last game and then a full 2 weeks before they go out and play that regular season game. Whereas before, when you had 4 games, you only had 1 week between
that's true. And I think that there's, reasoning for both, to be honest with you. I kind of look at the London thing like they actually are on a bye when they come back. When they play that Thursday game, then they've got an extra few days before they go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
so that's kind of like a bye week situation practice-wise. So, it's just, listen, Coach Peterson has done a great job with this football team, and no way would I question what he's doing.
It's working.
Other than if we all have an opinion. I would have approached it maybe a little different,
right.
But I can understand the reasoning behind doing it this way.
Okay, so before we start looking at the Miami game, let's look back and hit a few things that jumped out for us. And I took notes, you took notes. You're a guy that's always on top of what you see, and you're trying to forecast what we will see next. So maybe let's just start on the offensive side. A couple things that jumped out for you against the Detroit Lions.
Well, first of all, I loved the fact that that a mistake was made early, and then they rectified that mistake. Trevor took him down the field, a short field, but it was after a turnover, which was another thing that I really liked. Was the turnover situation. And, he's shown that he's where he needs to be. And that, to me, is a real plus. The other things that have kind of stuck out is that the defense is having no problem against the running game, for sure. And
that's 2 games they have done really well against them.
Absolutely. And plus the fact that they've actually handled themselves in the passing game as well. Although, you take everything with a grain of salt because you're playing against backup guys as well.
Yeah, they chose not to go with a lot of their starters.
Yeah, so when you look at the game, I like the fact that when you win, it doesn't matter whether it's a preseason game or not. When you win the football player and you dominate the game, whether it's first against firsts or seconds against seconds, you got to feel good about it. And I think it shows that this team right now has improved number 23 through 53. Very much so. They now have some guys at the back end of the roster that make this a better team. And I think that's important because, you need every one of those guys during the course of the year.
Yeah, you got to deal with injuries. You got to have an answer to injuries.
Special teams.
And crucial special teams players, guys that have stepped up, like a Tim Jones, which we will get to. But it's funny you mentioned preseason. And last night, the Washington Commanders finally ended a Baltimore Ravens streak that was, 24 games, I believe.
Yeah, it was a long time.
It had dated back quite some time. And you do find yourself, like the Washington side said, what a meaningless piece of bleep stat that is. And the other side is like, let's just go out and try and win a ball game. There's nothing wrong with that, no matter who we're playing. Let's go out and win a ball game.
And I think that's important. I think it's important any time that you walk out on the football field that you don't approach the game like it's meaningless. Because I think that hurts you.
Yeah,
it hurts you going forward. This game is emotional. The game is about. It can even lead to injury.
Yeah,
the game is emotional. One guy's playing hard, the other guy's not playing hard.
Right.
But I think when you approach the game that we're going to go out and try to win it.
Yeah.
That's a different mentality.
Yeah, I think that's a good philosophy. I really do.
Absolutely.
So let me give you this one. And this is something that I feel it is important. Based on what you just said, the last time the Jaguars won more than 2 games in the preseason, the pandemic hadn't hit. Okay? They had only won 1 preseason game since the pandemic until back-to-back wins against Dallas and Detroit. Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it was a crappy football team for a while.
It's funny because, you say, well, you want to win them, but, it really, you got to be ready to play on that first ball game. Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's important that you try to win it.
Yeah, and they weren't good enough. They didn't have a good enough roster.
Right.
It goes to what you just said. The last 30 players on this football team are better. Now, I jokingly would refer to it as the butt end of the roster.
Right.
And I feel like Balky has done a very good job of filling in a lot of crucial holes. Let's begin with Jeremiah Ledbetter, okay? Because Devon Hamilton goes down with an injury. They look at a guy who's trying to make this team. I shouldn't even call him second team. Trying to make this team. And they say, go make your presence felt inside. And I thought he was active, strong, and made plays.
Yeah, no question. I think at first, of course, he was here. So
last year,
a year ago. Yeah. So he's been through the Doug Peterson regime or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
which gave him a little bit of a boost. But the first game, I thought he stuck out on a few plays. But in this game, I thought he really handled himself really well.
Yeah,
and that's important. I mean, especially with Fatukasi,
not healthy right now.
not being completely healthy for 2 weeks, 2 years now, and Devon going down. You got to have some of those backup guys, and I thought he handled himself very well.
And I want to remain positive about Fatukasi. East Rockaway Beach, it's a tough place, and I like this guy. But he said goodbye to the Jets, and the Jets haven't missed him, okay? He was signed as a free agent here. We know how good that Jets defensive front is. It's pretty dang good. And so he needs to come in, and he needs to be healthy to be able to help this football team. Doug Peterson he didn't minimize it, but he didn't make a big deal out of it. He made it seem like Fatukasi is going to be okay by the time we get to the start of the season.
Which I think he is. And that's another example, I believe, that some of the guys on this football team, I always go back to Jimmy Smith. We had Jimmy Smith in Dallas for 2 years, and we couldn't keep him because we were loaded at that particular position. Well, that was the same situation with the Jets. They were loaded at the D-line position, which they still are, and that's why we were fortunate enough to get Fatukasi. But Fatukasi, it wasn't because they didn't want Fatukasi. Right. It was because they couldn't keep him.
Yeah.
We need to get 100% out of him because that's an important position, and he is an important player for this football team. So I think he's going to be ready for the game, when we open.
Yeah.
But, I'm just hopeful that it's not a recurring thing.
Yes, yeah. So let's stay on the defensive side. Jaguar fans, you've been paying attention to the Devon Hamilton news. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of it other than it was a non-football injury. He had been practicing. You hope that he's going to be okay. He was spotted in crutches coming out of the locker room up in Detroit. We don't know much more than that. We hope that he's going to be okay, but they're on top of that one. Let's stay on the defensive side of the football. A couple of other guys that might have popped for you. I mentioned Jordan Smith. Right. I think Jordan Smith, in back-to-back weeks, has made plays. In fact, both he and Ventrell Miller, two former Gators that were in on a big play. Granted, it was late in the game, but Jordan Smith's trying to make this football team. Right. What did you think of him, and can he make this football team?
Well, I think you've heard me say in previous podcasts and on shows that one of the things I really wanted to see was Jordan Smith because he looks the part.
Yeah.
He's athletic. He's long. He's pretty physical. He's a big guy.
Yeah, 6'5", 250.
Yeah. And I would say he's done some good things, but my concern with him is that I can see at times that he has the knee.
Okay.
I can see that he doesn't have push off and length with steps and those kind of things with him.
So does that mean he can't have that initial hit and have the strength behind it? Is that what
I think it's a combination of that and really being able to just accelerate, explode.
Okay.
Whether that's, trying to go around the edge or whether it's, getting into a guy and handling him. I think physically he could probably handle. I just don't see that explosion that you're looking for from that position. So, if you look at the athletic ability of Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, even Chason.
True.
If you just look at him athletically, his athletic ability has been hampered, in my opinion, with the injury. And hey, he wears a sleeve on it. It's not 100%. That's all there is to it.
No, I mean, we speak of knees, and we'll get to the offensive side in a minute, but I worry about Ben Bartch. That's one of the main things. The point of attack. Can he hold up? All right, some other guys on the defensive side that you like, that you saw make plays, because these are guys all battling. Christian Braswell, I made the note that he is a sure tackler. I like what I see from him. Love what I see from Greg Jr. Who else popped for you?
Well, first of all, those two guys I think have got a great chance to make the 53.
Including Braswell. That's good to hear.
I mean, I like Braswell. I think he's a really good special teams guy. And, he can – he's shown that he might be able to play the nickel position as well. Gregory Jr., I think, has sewed it up. He's made too many plays. Somewhere along the line you have to say, hey, look, if this guy's making plays, he's going to continue to do it.
Right.
Just one of those guys that gets around the ball. That's how it happens.
I was a doubter last year. He really has turned the corner.
Yeah. The guy that I kind of like that's kind of banged up now all of a sudden is Antonio Johnson, because Antonio Johnson has a lot of the traits that you look for at that position.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a guy that I think has proven that he has a chance to make the 53.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he's not 100, he's going to be 100%. You don't know that.
And it's a hamstring.
Yeah, and that can linger.
Yeah.
Another guy that I kind of like, I think Monteric Brown is kind of backed up a little bit in my opinion.
Agree.
I don't see him doing the things that I thought I would see from him. Tavon Campbell on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
if you want a veteran backup at one of the corner positions,
Right.
I think he's shown enough to be in the picture. But
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a very difficult cut back there. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
come down to who's doing the most on special teams. That's a difficult cut in my mind.
Yeah, and I put Monteric Brown and Kevin Austin on notice last week because I felt like Monteric was absolutely lost, like washed in the shuffle in zone and just kind of got beat. Now, again, this is one game, but I've tried to pay attention in practice. I saw him on a couple of call blitzes in practice, which I loved seeing. I thought, he was having a decent camp, but that definitely did not he did not look particularly good in either of these two live game situations.
And I would say the same thing. So, to me, I think, the three starters,
Mm-hmm.
and Herndon's going to be one of the starters.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next, you're probably going to keep, I would think, 6 corners. So you're talking about,
Okay.
you're either keeping 5 and 5 with the safeties, or
Which
you're
I
going
feel like
6,
that might happen.
or you're going 6 and 4 with the safeties. And I don't see it going 6 and 4 with the safeties.
Okay, so let's just do this real quick. Okay, Darius and Tyson and Trey are your 3 starters when you're playing a nickel.
Right.
You've got Tavon Campbell making it. You've got Greg Jr. making it. And then I think you have Christian Braswell making it.
Yeah,
That's 6.
I think it's going to come down to where's Clay Brooks.
Okay.
Because Clay Brooks has experience. He is a good special teams player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's got quickness. If he was forced to, he could probably play nickel.
But we've cut Monteric Brown.
Yeah.
All right. Or we put him on the practice squad for the second year, which is certainly possible.
Right.
And then let's go to the free safety. Now, last year, if memory serves, they only carried 4. They went 6 and 4, right? And they might have, I'd have to go back and look and see if they moved a guy on and off the practice squad. But we know that Cisco, Thomas, Rayshawn, and Dewey were here.
Yes.
So now you have to make that decision. Is Antonio Johnson here?
Yeah. And that's a tough decision from the standpoint that
that's why I
your
put
fourth
Braswell.
guy out of that whole scenario could be Dewey.
Mm-hmm.
And Dewey just signed a new contract.
Yeah, he's not going
He is kind of Duval.
Yeah,
So
it was always the Jet.
So that's going to be a question. It may, when you look at the total number, it's got to come out to 25 on defense, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the total number, that's 6 D linemen, that's 4 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers.
Okay, 6 and 8.
And then it's 5 and 5, correct? Am I right?
Well, you'd still have one more spot to get to 25.
Okay, so it would be the 5th linebacker, which I think is going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, so let's just for our argument, let's take Christian Braswell, let's put him on the practice squad, let's put Antonio Johnson on the team. So now we have 9 when it comes to the secondary position. Right. Then we go to that linebacking core, and right now, let's go. And you have said this. Forget about it, people. Kaylavon Chaison's making this team.
Correct.
So you got Trayvon, Josh Allen, Kaylavon, and Yasir Abdullah.
I'm going Abdullah.
Okay. I feel like Jordan Smith has got a shot, but I tend to agree with you. Yeah, I tend to, like, in other words, I think I could see 5 guys there.
Yeah.
I'm not positive. DJ Coleman's a guy you like.
Yeah. Now, that one I think he's an active player. I think he might be a beauty for practice squad.
Yeah. He's one that you like. Then we go to the inside linebackers, and you're saying 4 or 5.
I've got the 3 incumbents.
Okay,
Luakon,
Lloyd,
Muma. Now I think it's Ventrell.
I agree.
And then I could see them keeping a 5th one.
Is it Caleb Johnson or is it Shaq Quarterman?
That's a tough pick.
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson is probably a better special teams guy.
And Shaq has been an integral special teams guy.
So I can't tell you that one. I think Quarterman, there's a ceiling.
He's at risk.
Quarterman.
He's at risk of not making it.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. And if Caleb is faster.
He is.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be an interesting pick right there.
All right, that's awesome. Real quick before,
and he made some plays, by the way, in this last ball game. Caleb
exactly.
Johnson.
He's the one. I mean, that basically was a one-player play, getting the ball out, scooping the ball, turning it upfield.
Yep.
And that's all good stuff. It really is. All right, a couple of other guys. We mentioned Ventrell Miller. Both he and Jordan Smith got to the quarterback at the same time. They ended up calling I think they threw a flag on that penalty, but on that play. But both of those guys were there in the backfield. Anybody else on the defensive side that you want to single out before we hit the offense? we didn't get to see a lot of starters.
Yeah, I would say the only other guy is the kid from Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
Will probably
Tyler Lacey is a
sixth defensive lineman.
Okay, so you do have him. Yeah. All right, I need to plug him in because I'm looking here, and if we go with those defensive linemen, Devon needs to be healthy. Vohasek has been a nice little surprise.
Yeah,
he could end up being
he's a practice squad.
He's a practice
squad.
He's
just
guy.
A rabble rouser is what he is.
Yeah, double RH, Roy Robertson Harris.
Yep.
Do you have Adam Gostis making the squad?
Yes.
So you've got Hamilton, double RH, Gostis, Foley, Ledbetter, and Lacey. Okay?
That's it.
I'm good with that.
That's it. And I think you have to keep the sixth defensive lineman because of the injury situation that they're dealing with.
I'm good with that. All right, let's get to the offensive side of the football. There were a couple of things that went on. Cam Robinson out at left tackle, Walker Little at left guard. What did you think of that?
Well, I thought Cam Robinson had an awful ball game. Ugly.
Okay.
Almost to the point of being ridiculous that he was even out there. That concerns me for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Was he uninspired or was he unprepared?
I think it was probably a combination.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, literally, he overset. He whiffed. He got knocked back into the quarterback. I mean, it was just a bad performance all the way around. Now, Walker Little, on the other hand, did okay at guard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's his best position.
No, he's still such a big guy.
He's so tall that he really has to work.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did in the game, and this is what you do in the preseason, is they got him on a couple of pulls.
Okay.
And that's what he does.
Yeah. And he
looks darn good at it.
Yeah, he can move.
And that's what concerns me about Hodges getting hurt, because when Hodges was pulling, he's a natural puller. He was tight to the tackle when he was pulling around there. Yeah. He looked good in those situations.
He had good speed for his size.
Absolutely. But Little, from that standpoint, things happen a little bit faster in there at guard, and I don't think he's had enough work at it. Not that he probably couldn't do it.
Okay.
But he is athletic.
So what will we see Saturday night? I think we'll see Little.
Oh, yeah.
Hance, Fortner, Sheriff, our man from Oklahoma, Anton Harris.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless they're holding Anton for any reason.
Right.
I don't know that. I don't think so. But, that's 2 times now they've talked about his shoulder. So there might be a little concern there. I don't know.
All right. So other guys on the offensive side, I think we both agreed the running backs were impressive.
Great room.
Yeah.
Great room. All a little bit different, which I think is really good. Well, and they all have one thing that you can't coach, speed.
Mm-hmm.
They all can hit the end of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
They can jump cut. Hasty is really good out of the backfield and catching the football and has shown that he can hit a hole pretty good too and got some speed. They've all got it. I think Bigsby, I don't know this. I heard it somewhere, but it looked to me like Bigsby might be faster than ETN. Whew. I'm talking about just flat out speed.
And what I love about him, as much as I love ETN can be caught a little upright.
Yeah.
Bigsby's down low.
Yeah,
you see his helmet before you see anything else.
Right, exactly.
And so I love the combination.
Yeah.
But the other guy, I consider myself back at St. Joe's, lunch pail guy. You at Central Connecticut, you were a lunch pail guy.
Right, exactly.
Dearness Johnson.
Yep.
That's that he's a lunch pail guy.
Absolutely. And he's got ability. He can jump cut. He's got good speed.
He's tough.
Yeah, I think that's a 4-man room and 4 good ones.
All right, so we wrote him down. Tim Jones, he gets called on a hold. He's a very good downfield blocker, but he does get called on a hold, one of the Bigsby runs. Then he comes right back, makes a contested catch right on the boundary. C.J. Beathard puts it where he can go up and get it. Seth Williams had a contested catch. Beautiful play by him. Elijah Cooks later on, such a big target. He gets the ball in his hands. He turns upfield, makes plays. There were so many of these. And, heck, Jacob Harris, too. I'm looking at the timeline at practice, and Jacob Harris is making plays again today.
Yeah.
That's not going to be an easy cut.
That's the hardest cut right there. Well, let me put it this way. I think the defensive backfield is going to be the hardest cut.
Oh, okay. Over the wide receivers.
Yeah,
okay.
And the reason for that is that there are a lot of guys that are just alike.
Okay.
That are back there.
Right. You need 5 of those guys where you may not need 5 of these receivers.
Yeah, but it's just that they're going to have to make decisions on which one of these guys that are just alike are going to be at the end of that, 5th, 6th, whatever corner, how many are going to keep, whatever. The receiver core, to me, the 6th receiver is not going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's just going to be a practice guy.
So you got Parker Washington. I don't believe that they want to expose him to any kind of somebody picking him because I think he's shown enough toughness and ability to get open and some of those kind of things. The one thing that is the issue is the 6th receiver is it got to be a special teams guy, period.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing here. But I think that they're going to go with Tim Jones because of that. He's experienced. He's a great special teams player, and he has shown that he can catch the football in contested, critical situations.
And both Parker and Tim Jones will be special teams guys.
Correct.
And Jamal Agnew.
Yes, correct. Now, here's where the issue comes in, because I think that they're going to feel like one or two of those big, I call them giraffes.
Yeah, they're big.
That's a big group. You got all of them. Cooks.
Elijah Cooks is a big one. Jacob Harris is a big one. And then you might call Seth Williams just a little bit smaller. Slightly smaller, big one.
He's still a big one.
Yeah.
And I think they will feel like 2 of those guys, 1 or 2 of them will get to the practice squad.
Okay.
So you keep the special teams guy that's going to help you in that ball game. The only thing that sticks in my mind is I'd love to have one of those big giraffes because they're a different cat and they all run well enough. Yeah. I mean, it's not just like they're big guys. They can run.
At first, I was all on Elijah Cooks. You know what? I take that back. I've fallen in love with all these guys at one time or another.
Yeah.
Seth Williams was first, then Elijah Cooks. I'm like, gosh, he's even bigger and he can move.
Yeah.
And then Jacob Harris is looking like the guy out of the 3 of them. And so back to your point, and I think we agree on this, Doug Peterson wants to have a big target that can win 50-50 balls. This is not a criticism of Christian Kirk, but if you're throwing a fade, he's the low point height-wise.
Right.
And Calvin Ridley's a little taller than him, and then Zay's a little taller than him.
Zay's the big receiver, actually. Yeah. I'm not 100 convinced 100% on Parker Washington. And I'm going to say that, and I could be all wet. I don't know. But, we already got one of those guys, Kirk.
Yeah.
We don't have one of those giraffes.
No.
So, again, I think what's going to happen, I don't think they want Parker Washington to get out of here for whatever reason. So that is what puts the wrench into, who's the 6th guy. And that's going to be a decision that's going to be very difficult to make.
Like, I think Trent Baalke's done a really good job of constructing a pretty good football team. It's like we have all said, this roster's more difficult to lop off guys at the end. But an undersized Yasir Abdullah and an undersized slot receiver in Parker Washington. I mean, that's what they are.
Yep.
And I'll go take you back to your Dallas days. Gil Brandt would always say, if I'm evaluating, I'm looking for the biggest, the fastest, the strongest.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna pull from that pile,
you
know, instead of the bigger pile.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. And to be honest with you, if I had any concerns at all, it would be those two guys you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about how much they're going to help us this year.
Right. And there's big plans for this year.
Yeah.
And by the way, Coach, 12 rookies made this team last year. 13 were drafted this year. There's no way all 25 are on this roster.
Right.
No way.
No.
And that's that's
great.
That's goodbye to Snoop. That's goodbye to a handful.
A few guys here and there.
Monteric. Greg Jr. has risen.
Yeah.
Give him credit.
Right.
So we'll do a little bit of that next week as we get closer to the cuts.
Yeah, I'd like to really take a good look this week and see where we're at.
Yeah.
And the other thing you have to keep in mind, Joe, is it's hard to pick the final 53 because it's how they want the roster constructed. And it could be that somebody gets a little banged up in this game and you cut somebody that you think is going to not get picked up,
bring them
that
back.
you want on the club. And then the guy you keep, you put on IR where you can bring him back during the course of the year.
True, very true.
And then bring that guy back onto the roster. That's why you can't really 100% say this is how they're going.
And by the way, they may make the 53 and then someone else gets cut on another team.
I guarantee you they're looking for pass rushers.
They better
If there's any guys that, that are young players or whatever, or at a position where somebody's kind of stacked.
Fringe guy.
A guy that's stacked in another situation. They're studying those guys right now, I promise you.
Take the Eagles as an example. They had 70 sacks. They're looking for sack guys, and they might look at the end of that roster.
Absolutely.
All right, good stuff. We'll have fun doing this next week. Joe C., XL Primetime, noon to 3 weekdays. Coach Campo, he's always with us hanging out, and we love his breaking down. So as we say goodbye, we got to do it again, Coach. Just get the bobblehead going.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you next week, Campo and Joe.